Well, it's Monday and we are running behind thanks to technical difficulties over here at the Steel News production headquarters of my home. I'm Ann Vandersteel. I've been on the road for the last week covering this Florida election. And I got to tell you, folks, I'm exhausted and I'm not a candidate. But what these candidates are going through, particularly Paul Renner, are the headwinds he is fighting by that are being manufactured by his own. And today's program is basically a word about these powerful institutions that they love to use, but too often they really don't practice. It's called accountability. And the RPOF is definitely one of these very powerful institutions. And for those of you that have no idea what the acronym RPOF stands for, let me spell it out. The Republican Party of Florida, that's the RPOF. And they say that its mission is to defend freedom, liberty, personal responsibility, and accountability. They promise to support candidates with integrity and serve as a model for other state party organizations. And I got to tell you, those are some pretty nice and strong sounding words, but a mission statement means absolutely nothing unless the people entrusted with that power are willing to live by it. And in St. Johns County, serious questions remain about allegedly fraudulent voter guides distributed during a Republican primary. And if there are allegedly fraudulent voter guides distributed through a Republican primary, wouldn't you think that the Republican Party of Florida would want to know about it, investigate it, perhaps do something about it? Well, there's estimates that suggest that approximately 30,000 mailers may have actually been sent to voters. And one candidate reportedly lost by only about 844 votes. So we're not talking about like, ooh, just a teeny little bit of a discrepancy here. We're talking about something that really needs to be looked into because, as General Flynn says, local action has a national impact. And our county governments are incredibly important. The more we go through this globalist, sovereigntist fight, and we're going to talk about that later. My good friend, Brigadier General, retired Brigadier General Blaine Holt wrote a good article about that in Newsmax. He's a Newsmax contributor. But as we go through this fight, you're going to start to really comprehend just how important local government is. So we need to be asking these questions. Who created these fake voter guides? Who financed them? Who supplied the voter information? Who stuffed and mailed tens of thousands of envelopes? Who benefited? And what did these Republican officials know? And what have they done to ensure that nothing like this happens again? That's going to be our first segment. In our second segment, we're going to be turning into a potentially life-threatening medical condition called alpha-gal syndrome. This is an allergy associated with tick bites that can trigger serious reactions to red meat and other mammalian products. And my guest for that segment is Dr. Ariyana Love, and she's going to be bringing forward an investigation containing extraordinary allegations involving tick research, military programs, and radioactive materials. Some of our conclusions go way beyond what the public health authorities have recognized, but I don't want to talk about this in terms of just making more fear porn, because God knows we've had enough of that from COVID the last 6 years. So we are not here to also declare an allegation proven merely because it's alarming sounding. I'm going to be asking some difficult questions. I want original evidence, and I want to determine what deserves further independent investigation. That's what we're going to do this afternoon on the second half of the show. So I guess it goes to say whether we're going to look at political institutions or medical institutions, we must have the same standards. Show me the evidence. Show me the pics or it ain't real. It didn't happen. You know the expression? Tell us who's responsible. Stop asking the American people to blindly trust institutions that refuse to answer legitimate questions. So the Republican Party of Florida says it's going to promote freedom, personal responsibility, accountability, and it pledges to elect Floridians with integrity. What happens when those Republican voters believe that principles may have been violated inside their own party? And as I said earlier, during a St. Johns County election, allegedly fraudulent voter guides were reportedly mailed to thousands of voters. Estimates based on postage expenditures suggest that approximately 30,000 guides may have been distributed. And former county commission candidate Anne Marie Evans lost her race by approximately 844 votes. She says that she reported the guides to the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office as soon as she became aware of them. And the sheriff also reportedly targeted by the guides as well. This would create, I would consider, an understandable conflict that resulted in the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, the FDLE, to lead the investigation. The sheriff's opponent was implicated but not charged, while the opponent's campaign manager was charged. But even after those developments, there's some fundamental questions that remain unanswered. An operation involving tens of thousands of mailers requires money, voter data, printing, labor, coordination, advanced planning. So I think it's safe to say that this wasn't just one person stuffing a few envelopes at a kitchen table. So let's bring in our guests, because we've got to dive into these questions about who paid for it, who knew about it, who benefited, all these good things. And I want to ask the tough questions of the St. Johns County chair. Why isn't the RPOF standing at his side? And I know that's going to put him in a difficult position. But these are questions I want to know, because as a Republican registered voter, I have seen time and time again, this is me talking, these are not my guests. I've seen issue with the Republican Party of Florida, specifically at the South Sunshine State no-show showdown that happened a few weeks ago, where Evan Powers stood on stage and says we need to get behind the one candidate, implying Byron Donalds. We haven't even had an election on August 18th. Hello, that's the primary where we decide who will be the representative. So joining me now is Denver Cook, chairman of the St. Johns County Republican Executive Committee, and Anne Marie Cook, former county commission candidate. Folks, welcome, and thank you so much for being here. It's really an honor to have you, because this story really just ticks me off at the core, the fundamental level, that you would be in a race, and you as the chair of the Republican Party, Denver, would be, trying to do the best by your candidate, so that may the best person win, only to find out fraudulent voter guides are being distributed and you're not getting support, or at least it doesn't seem that you're getting support to uncover who really did it. So why don't we start with you, Denver, and bring us up to speed. I'm going to pull up your website, and then I want to cut over to Anne Marie.
Yeah, so thanks for having us. Thanks for covering this. I think it's really important for people to understand, and you mentioned it earlier, how important local elections are. And as a county chair for the St. Johns County GOP, that's where my 99% of my focus is. What's going on here locally, both at our county commission, our constitutional seats, sheriff, clerk, tax collector, property appraiser, and supervisor of elections, but also in our city leaderships, which is St. Augustine Beach and St. Augustine. The affidavit, if people take the time to read it, the affidavit lays bare this fraudulent voter guide, which used our logo, the St. Johns County Republican Party, and had a slate different than those that we had endorsed, because we had endorsed 8 candidates. This fraudulent guide had 10 candidates on it in direct opposition to what we were doing, and added a few seats, including the sheriff and the clerk's race, which were not considered by us. And this was somewhere in the neighborhood of $50,000 investment, where we had 2 seated county commissioners, one of them up for re-election in that 24 election cycle. The other one's seat is up this time. She was serving in 24 on the canvassing board for the supervisor of elections for that election process. According to the affidavit, both of those commissioners showed up at a house with a campaign manager backed by developer money, and stuffed these envelopes. In the case of one of them, she brought her children with her, as if this is an appropriate activity to, fun time for your kids. As well as at that point, the mayor of St. Augustine Beach has been indicted as well. So we have a mayor from one of our cities and 2 seated county commissioners who are involved, as well as 3 operatives. I will say that it is, when I finally saw the full affidavit, and having spent 2 years pushing to get this done, working with FDLE, trying to get a prosecutor to actually move this forward in a swift manner, it's been a long haul. And I'm really glad the affidavit finally came out, that the charges were finally made. But I will say, we're talking 2 misdemeanors and 1 felony. If you read the affidavit, there's definitely room for further charges. I am retaining counsel on behalf of the county party to see if we can't get a lawyer to push prosecutors, find out what more might be there, because we don't know if we have the full story at this point yet. An affidavit is not the full investigation.
Correct. And is it an unrebutted affidavit at this point?
At this point, there has been no response. The spokesperson, 2 spokespeople for the defendants in this case, have said this has been a long outstanding thing, and we look forward to having it closed out in the near future. That's about the extent of their response at this point. Okay. The campaign manager in this case, who's also accused with a felony of destroying evidence, had been arrested and is, I presume, released on bond. So there are, this is taking the party name and using it at a local level.
Right. And here's the problem. Here's the concern I see, because the Florida Republican Assembly was sued by the Republican Party of Florida for using the word Republican and having an elephant in their logo. I would like to know, is the RPOF standing up and backing St. Johns County up when it comes to the investigation? Have you gotten any support from the leadership at the RPOF, whether it was Evan Powers, Bill Helmick, Dave Ramba, anybody over there, just to because this is, clearly this sort of runs in parallel with what they were accusing the FRA of doing.
So the legal counsel for the RPOF did help me file the criminal complaint back in 2024. That's been the extent of the legal aid related to this case.
Would you like to see more? Would you like to see more?
I would like to see more.
Okay.
At this point, I'm being left alone as a county chair to fight this in civil court and to pursue this in the criminal court. As the state party says, it's the county problem, not a state problem, because it was done to you, the St. John's GOP. And I want to be a little careful here. I am the St. Johns County Republican Party. I represent the Republican Party in St. Johns County. The Republican Party of Florida does not represent the party here in our county. The St. Johns County GOP does. Okay. They represent it at the state. I, as a chair, am a member of the Republican Party of Florida.
Well, I'm concerned then, because my understanding, and I've interviewed several people about this, is that the Republican Party of Florida is going into the Republican executive committees. I mean, tell us the relationship between the local Republican executive committees and the Republican, the St. Johns County Republican Party, because I understand that RPOF is replacing people at the executive committee level, and they changed their statutes 2 years ago in order to accomplish this. And they've done this. They've been pretty successful at removing people that they did not feel agreed with their, perspective. And I'm hearing a lot of pushback on it.
You hear a lot of pushback. So they did change a few years ago our county model constitutions. So every county used to have their own constitution that they would write and their own bylaws that they would come up with. The state party modified that through rules and created a county model constitution. So all 67 counties have the same constitution, the same rules. The state has its rules and rules of procedure that we have to follow under. To a point, I can see the necessity of doing that so that we're kind of functioning as an organization. But there's still within those rules, there's work that needs to be done. There are rule things that have happened that I disagree with as a member of the party. We don't all get what we want every time. One of the big ones was on endorsements, the Rule 8 modifications they made, where county parties used to be able to do endorsements, no longer able to in multi-county races. So we can't consider endorsements for state representatives or state senators or anyone else, only for county office holders or nonpartisan races. They had originally changed that so that we would have to wait until after qualifying. I went in and I did meet with Evan and had a good conversation with him and was able to push through. And it was not a unanimous vote by the executive board or the rules committee, but we were able to get through. 30 days prior to qualifying, county parties could consider endorsements, which still gives you a limited time to use those endorsements to any real effect.
Sure.
It's a 10 to 15 day process to just have the meeting and the votes to consider an endorsement. And then you would obviously have to print materials to support that. So it's really crunches you down to having little ability to create a strategy to win. For me, one of the big things this year that I'm working on is taking the city of St. Augustine, which we're Red County, has been a Democrat city for decades. We now have a Republican mayor-elect, and we have two people running for the two open seats who are Republicans that we're fighting for to try to flip St. Augustine into a Republican city. But our hands are pretty much tied until after qualifying to do much. So there are some definite rule changes, and the state party, why they're telling us we should let voters decide, and you county chairs shouldn't be doing endorsements locally. The state party, on the flip side, has endorsed 4 statewide candidates in the process of telling the counties you can't do it. So there are some people who believe that the rules are not equal between what the state party can do and we at the county chairmanships and the county parties can do. There is an inequity in what people can do.
Yeah, it certainly sounds that. Well, I want to bring Anne Marie Evans in. She's an aggrieved candidate and was victim also to this fraudulent ballot that went out using the name of your organization to lure people into voting for the wrong candidates. And she lost by 844 votes. Anne Marie, thank you for being here. Oops, what happened? There you are.
For having me.
Yeah, of course. Give us a quick rundown on the history of your candidacy and what you've learned based on this fraudulent ballot that went out.
Yeah, so I spent a year campaigning very hard to represent the interests of the residents of St. Johns County. The voters here have sent some very clear people have sent some very clear messages about what they want to see for the direction of our county. I represented that and campaigned very hard. And we got to early voting, and I was horrified to see the fraudulent voter guide appear. I had worked hard for the endorsement from the Republican Executive Committee. I had went, and it was a vote of the membership, so it really represented the will of the REC. When our names went out on the endorsement guide, and then it was all stolen from us in the home stretch when those guides went out. And really, it has taken almost 2 years to get to this point in time. Of course, I'm thrilled that charges have finally come, but man, it's taken a long time. And I'm glad they're coming before this primary where, left unattended, without any consequences, this may have played out totally again in this primary.
Absolutely. So at what point do you think, where do you think you are? Do you believe that you are going to get restitution? Is this going to hinder your opportunity going forward? How is this going to impact the future for your political career?
So for me right now, I am praying for an appointment if a vacancy occurs. I think a vacancy should occur, whether that's by resignation or whether that's by the governor interceding and removing someone. But I am praying for an appointment. I believe, in my heart of hearts, I believe I won the election and that the voter guides hoodwinked voters. When we were at early voting, we were watching people walk up with a fraudulent voter guide. And as you know, laws prevent us from getting too close to voters. And We're holding our voter guide saying, hey, here's the right one. Don't walk in with the wrong one. Ours weren't mailed. So the fraudulent voter guides were. And so people would walk in and they'd wave it back. Oh, don't worry, I've already got it. And of course, they had the wrong one. So the fraudulent voter guides disenfranchised voters. I'm hoping that justice for me comes in the form of an appointment. Okay. And justice for the people that supported me.
Sure. In terms of support outside of the St. Johns County, I understand, according to, and I believe Denver gave a good, and I'll bring him back in here, gave a good explanation. This really is a county issue. But again, I just point back to, past, shall we say, past actions taken by the RPOF for other entities that they claimed were impersonating them and using their name and likeness. And they won a lawsuit over it. I'm just wondering, do you think that the RPOF needs to adjust their statutes for issues like this that can happen? Because this isn't the first time I've heard of fraudulent voter guides. You're just the first folks to come forward and want to be public about it. And I think it's fantastic because people need to recognize if they're getting mailed a voter guide, they should, potentially contact their local GOP or their REC and say, is this you guys or who is this? How would you advise voters? Because it's also confusing as it is.
Yeah, I think at this point, consulting with the local REC is the only way to ensure that the voter guide you have is the legitimate voter guide. The one that went out, of course, it didn't have the paid for anywhere on it, and it looked extremely similar to ours. It was confusing. I am hoping that with the hammer now coming down on some of these folks that were allegedly involved, I am hoping that will send a message to other people who think this is the way to win, is by cheating, that there are consequences, there's legal consequences, and hopefully ends to political careers if the allegations are true.
Yeah,
Denver?
So from my standpoint, Anne Marie, I've had long conversations about this over the last 2 years, and I was running for office at the same time she was, so we were out, collecting ballots and burning up in the sun together. But the people need to be held accountable. We are missing accountability, oversight, and transparency in government across the board. And if we don't have accountability on something so blatant, how can we actually trust anything our government is doing, much less the people who've been elected? So I want to be clear in this cycle, if you get anything in the mail, don't trust it. I will tell you, the St. Johns County Republican Party, we've done no mail. We've sent no mail to anybody. We haven't endorsed anybody. I feel a little bit blessed this cycle in that we don't have huge developer money like we had in 2024 and previous in this election cycle. It's far more grassroots candidates stepping up. There weren't those big multi-million-dollar PACs backing a cluster of candidates, which is, the 3 of the county commissioners were running for re-election and had millions of dollars to spend supporting them. We're not seeing that this cycle. That doesn't mean it won't happen again in 2 years. So I want the voters to understand you cannot trust what comes in the mail. You need to listen to the issues in your community. You need to search these people out, find out who they really are, and find out who the best people are. I will tell you, being out on the campaign trail with Anne Marie and with others, it was an amazing experience because I really got to know her as a person, and she talked to everybody. She wasn't this person sitting in an office having someone do a bunch of TV ads for her. She was out in the community listening. And we need more leaders like that who are listening to the people, not just to their special interests or who paid them. So to the people out there, to all the voters, yes, reach out to your party and ask if it's official. Yes, find out what it means. Sometimes you see things with party names on it, and it's not an actual endorsement. It's not actually anything. So I'm just going to tell you right now, I'm dealing with, there's some mailers coming into my county for candidates that say paid for by the Republican Party of Florida. What's happening is those candidates are working with the state party to pay for their mailers through the state party's nonprofit to have a cheaper bulk rate on their mail pricing, which is being offered. They're landing in mailbox. People are saying, why is the Republican Party of Florida endorsing this candidate? Well, it's not an endorsement. They're just using the party apparatus to pay to make their mailers cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
So these are very confusing things. I don't think that should be happening personally.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if we don't have a candidate the party is endorsed, we should do nothing. We should let the candidates stand on their own.
I agree with you, Denver, because it's just the system has gotten very complicated, and it doesn't need to be. And I think that you're exactly right, because maybe some candidates don't want to interact with the Republican Party of Florida for whatever reason. So they're already at a disadvantage if they're not getting the ability to leverage bulk mailing in terms of pricing. And the Republican Party of Florida indiscriminately, and this is my opinion, but I know it's shared widely by a lot of people, put their thumb on the scale and they said in the governor's race, if you're not at $10 million, 10%, in the polls, we're not going to do a debate. And they basically have given their candidate, to which Evan Powers said at this Sunshine State no-show showdown, that, we have to all coalesce behind one candidate, Byron Donalds. And that's just not fair to all the other candidates in the field. Clearly, there's some that rise more than others. And there's a lot of contestments going on right now in the field at the moment. But this is the kind of thing that I think that needs to be addressed. And that's where your job becomes very important, Denver, to bring this back to the Republican Party of Florida and speak on behalf of candidates that maybe don't want to interact at that level, but then it puts them, at a financial disadvantage.
And I will say this, that if you're not very connected donor base, you don't have those connections at the party or even know to go. So I have directed some people, say, hey, look, there's a quarterly, you might want to consider going. They offer training, you should go, to try to see who's over there. A lot of people don't want to do that. They want to, why should I worry about what the state party's doing? I'm working here in my county, in my community. Unless they're really, really engaged and involved, or part of, working with, well-financed, well-funded people, more financially establishment people. The average person who's stepping up, and I would say Anne Marie, when she stepped up to run, had no idea what she was stepping into initially. She was stepping up to serve her community as a citizen servant. Isn't that what we want? That's what I want. It's who I am. I will say I ran in that 24 election cycle against the constitutional clerk of courts. Between my own money and donors, I did a total spend of less than $12,000, including the $9,000 to get on the ballot. So I spent $3,000 on my campaign. I got 42% of the vote. I didn't do that by having party support. I didn't do that by having all kinds of PACs and donors and mailers. I did it by connecting with the people of St. Johns County and earned 42% of this county's vote with no endorsements, with no support, with nobody backing me. And I'm proud of that. My opponent was on the fraud mailer.
Right. So to your point, anybody that wants to get in and step in and embrace their civic duty as prescribed by our founding fathers can do it for very little money. Probably the biggest spend you have is just getting yourself qualified on the ballot, perhaps because you didn't have the time or manpower to go around and get all the signatures needed. How many signatures did you need, by the way, so you didn't have to pay the fee?
Right around 2,500 signatures.
Right. And I imagine you have a full-time job or run a company or something. You're busy doing.
I've shut my company down to focus on being a county chair and working for my community.
Wow.
This is what I do. I give my time. I make this much money doing all this work for my community. And I'm fine with it because I live here. It's about me, my family, and my children.
Right.
I am serving in the best way that I possibly can. And my daughter just came rolling in here. I'm on an interview, darling.
That's okay. She probably has an opinion. She probably has an opinion too.
So I parked in the middle of the driveway.
Oh, you're in trouble now?
I'm in trouble now.
They can't play outside. I love it.
Yeah, she's 19 and she can't get her car in the driveway. So
my apologies. Yeah, I hear you. That's
being
funny.
A parent, but this is what I'm fighting for. I mean, this is why I like doing what I do. I can be here for my children and give to my community. But, you know, I will tell you that out of this experience, I've done a number of different things as well. I've changed what I do. I put together a course on electioneering for grassroots candidates that I teach. We've run about 350 people through that, teaching people how to run an election for themselves, what they need to do, what those processes are, what they're going to be up against, you know, how to market themselves and all the things they need to do to be successful as grassroots candidates. So I'm doing a number of things to try to help balance the field, I guess, as best I can say, because I want the best. Part of our job is to get the best Republicans to run for office, to recruit them and support them and get them to run. So I'm looking for good people all the time who are willing to step up. It makes it really hard when this kind of fraud happens.
So I want to have you guys review this because I found this on the internet and I want to confirm if it's accurate or not. Are these the two different voter guides that were used in the 2024 race? Which one's real? Which one's fraudulent? The one
on the right, as I look at the screen, the official voter guide that has Mara Macy, Jerry James, Kim Kendall, Anne Marie Evans, Clay Murphy, Ann Taylor, Francis Cummings, and Lyndon Thompson. That's the legitimate voter guide.
Okay.
The other one was the fraudulent one, which included races that we didn't even consider and we're not allowed to by rule.
Isn't that interesting?
So Tamara Renbart is a state committee woman. By rule, we can't endorse our state committee men or state committee women. We didn't consider the sheriff or the clerk of courts and comptroller. So Jim Priest or Brandon Patty. I was running against Brandon Patty in that race. Rob Hardwick was the sheriff. Jim was challenging him. We didn't consider either one of those races at all. And I had the reason I did it, and people have said I shouldn't have, but I didn't feel that, number one, it was fair as chair for me to get an endorsement from my party for myself. And number two, the party's supposed to be fighting for a platform for our legislators to deliver on. Constitutionals are supposed to be there for everyone. So I thought it important to focus on legislators, not on those constitutional officers like the sheriff and tax collector and supervisor of elections, who aren't necessarily there just to represent the party's views.
So a question on this fraudulent voter guide, how many races were impacted in terms of losses besides Anne Marie's?
So 4 of those races we prevailed in. Mara did not prevail. Jerry did not prevail. Both of those were multi-county. So it had an effect, but I don't know that it was a major effect. Okay. Kim went on to prevail and win. Anne Marie lost. Clay and Ann Taylor both won. Francis Cummings lost. And Linda Thompson ended up getting, I believe, 48% in the primary and had to run again in November to actually win that seat for school board.
Okay. So essentially we had 3, you said? Was it 3 that lost?
We had, of the 8 people on our endorsement, 4 of them ended up winning.
4, and okay. So basically half. Okay. Yeah, no, I know Mara had a tough race. I was at her, that's where I met you, Denver, at her event.
Yeah.
And yeah, so she had a tough race. I remember that. You had some good people there, though. You got some folks from Breitbart speaking and a few others. It was,
Yeah, it was a great event. But we really, um, this led to political committees being formed in Trump's name to support the same people on this fraudulent voter guide, and the majority of them. It led to actual endorsements by the presidential nominee, Donald Trump, for the incumbent county commissioners. Like, this was really, really a bad.
Hold on. That is a massive bomb you just dropped, Denver. You're telling me that this fraudulent voter guide led to endorsements from the president?
So on Friday, I went on the news reporting this during early voting and spent the weekend in the news talking about it. I got a call from an unnamed individual complaining that who are we to decide who should be our county commissioners, and that his son was a senator and he would make sure Donald Trump endorsed the 3 incumbents. And Sunday night at midnight, there was an endorsement dropped by Donald Trump for the 3 incumbent county commissioners.
And when does a president weigh in on a county race?
Exactly. When do they?
When would they? And then when people pushed back in social media that Donald Trump would never weigh in a county commission race, another follow-up endorsement was put out on his True Social that he supported the Trump Club and these 3 county commissioners. They were real endorsements. Well, the Trump Club was a political committee. So I'm not getting into too much more detail here. But the fact that Donald Trump's endorsements ended up going for these 3 county commissioners was stunning. After the fraud on top of it. And I'm proud of this from our perspective. Anne Marie only lost by 844 votes, and Ann Taylor and Clay Murphy both won. Now, we then turned around in November, had a 90.29% turnout of Republicans to vote for our President Trump, and we're proud and happy to have done that. We do support our president. But this shows how far people will go with money to get things done. I don't believe Donald Trump had any clue who these people were, nor even cared, and nor do I expect him to. Like, I'm quite honest about it when people ask me. I expect Donald Trump to deal with Iran and the globe, not my county.
Right.
People in his organization, that's a different story.
Yeah.
Donors, big money. You know better than I how money flows and endorsements land.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's that has been the biggest that has been the biggest complaint, I think, that I've heard, is the endorsements that have come out from President Trump. More than likely aren't his real endorsements. It's coming in from big donors that are making sure. I mean, Lindsey Graham was basically the mouthpiece and poster child for the military-industrial complex, and to see him get endorsed after President Trump and he were at odds in the first term, and then see us get engaged in another foreign war, something that really goes against the president's doctrine of his first term. It was really rather shocking. But again, it's donors talk, and I think that the president is being ill-advised by people around him that have financial interests in continuing these big wars and whatever else they want to continue. And when you get a call from somebody who says, "My son, I will be calling," that to me is very telling. Wow. I doubt the president took that phone call. I bet it was somebody in his inner circle that took that phone call and made those endorsements happen on his True Social. So,
well, I'm not outing anybody in this.
No, I'm not asking you to. No, I'm not asking you to. But that is
But
to me.
we had in that election cycle, we had Donald Trump endorsements come in. Then we did our endorsements, and then we had Rick Scott and the governor endorse Kim Kendall's opponent, Nick Primrose, and he lost. So on the ground, we worked our butts off to overcome those level of endorsements and still prevail. But in the case of Ann Taylor, who won, it was correct me if I'm wrong, Anne Marie, it was right around 700 votes. Anne Marie, I believe, should have won. You know, I don't think Linda Thompson should have had to go on to November and spend an extra $40,000 on her campaign for school board.
Mm-hmm.
How would my race have turned out? I lost by around 7,000 votes with 30,000 fraudulent mailers going out, and I wasn't endorsed. So could it have affected my race? I don't know. I'm not a doctor in this stuff, but, you know, it just, you know, you're running up against a presidential endorsement. Like,
I will also add, in our county, and we also had ghost candidates. And Taylor and I, that's where somebody is put into a race who doesn't actually have any intention of winning, but the purpose is to siphon votes from another candidate. So we had one of those in my race, and I will just publicly say, I think people, not to say on innocence or guilt in the current circumstance, but I think people that are willing to put out a fraudulent voter guide, who knows what else was done during this election cycle. And I am in the 2024 primary, I'm anxious to hear if other antics were going on to influence how the race turned out.
Yeah.
And let me just say, related to that, the other antics, they all went on. The mailers that, you know, called candidates, you know, demon women and devil worshipers, the social media, the hateful social media posts that were going around, and the personal attacks on people's characters and families, the level of sheer evil that gets put into campaigns, and the negative mailing. I had somebody bring me a stack. It's about 4 inches tall of all the hate mail that they received on various candidates in the primary. And it's just this, how angry and how terrible can we make other people look?
Yeah.
Those are still going on. It's still happening across our country at every level. And that is the worst, bigger than the fraud that happened here. And I hope these people are held accountable who were responsible for it. But bigger than that, the reputational harm, it's just disgusting behavior to treat people like that. I feel blessed. I've run for office 3 times. In all 3 cases, I never called my opponent anything other than by their name and by their job title. And I talked about what issues were, what we need to fix in our taxes and spending, how we need to have better oversight, how our courts need to be more supportive of people struggling with issues. How can we fix our challenges and have better outcomes? I've never called people corrupt and evil and terrible and attacked their families and disrespected them personally. But that has been an ongoing thing in our election cycles for years, and it has reached a new fever pitch high with AI and social media.
Yeah. And shockingly, they put out these horrible hit pieces on myself and many of the other grassroots candidates. And as soon as the election was over and I went back to look at those commercials, they were gone. Like, they were gone, scrubbed. Right. And I think that says if you're not proud of something you put out, the best way to get rid of that is to take it off social media, and those ads disappeared immediately.
Yeah, of course. People who are proud of their work or stand by it, leave it up. If you make a mistake and you issue a retraction, that's totally understandable. 100%. I've issued them before. I've been wrong and I've issued retractions, or I put up a wrong, whatever, but I own my mistakes because I never intend to lie to people. I call balls and strikes on both sides. You know, President Trump, I agree with him on a lot of stuff. I disagree with him on a lot of stuff, and that's fair. He works for me. If you're a public servant, you work for the people, right? And you two embody that. Particularly, Denver, thank you for quitting your job and staying home to shepherd your sheep and to be maybe I should say you're the shepherd who listens to the sheep in St. John's County. You're taking orders from sheep. Hopefully they're not sheep. Hopefully they're going to be, you know, big bad wolves. They're going to stand up and, you know, do what's right for their county with them, because we have a charter. I mean, our founding fathers, you know, signed away everything in order to give us this beautiful second covenant country. And I don't feel like we're living up to the spirit and the letter of what they wrote on, scribed on parchment.
Can I give a shout out to some of my people real quick?
Of course, by all means. I'm going to put you on full screen for that.
We are a relatively small REC in the state of Florida. We have somewhere around 110 members. And our volunteer team has stood up over the last year and a half. We contacted over 30,000 people who voted for Donald Trump by mail in 2024 to renew their vote by mail request, because it is the way that people are voting, and we're trying to get them to do that while it's still there, even though we'd like to see it go away. But while it exists, we have to compete there, and we need to win there. We've lost special elections by losing by mail. We've called 2 rounds to every voter we have a phone number from to let them know that there is a midterm going on and they need to get out and vote, both in the primary and the general election. We, in 2025, helped Jack Chittarelli. We made 100,000 phone calls into Bergen County, New Jersey, 40,000 of those to a House district, and put 2 Republicans into the New Jersey State House because we had no elections going on here in 25. We stepped up and did that. So we are working hard at the county party here to do a lot from a small group of people. And I would encourage other people to realize that if they step in and lean in with honor and integrity, they can actually get some good things done. And I hope other people do that. And I'm super proud of my executive director, Teresa, who tells me, please stop crediting me, but she's just an amazing person running our office, and for all of us and all of our volunteers that are working their butts off to save our county, our state, and our country. So I'd like to thank them for supporting me and getting this done.
I love that. And that's awesome. I'm so glad you were able to do that. Thank you, Denver. And Anne Marie, thank you. I want to stay in touch with you all, because I want to see how this resolves. I know that your county is not the only county that has had fraudulent voter guides put out. You're the first that is willing to come to me and say, hey, I want to get this out there to the public, because at the end of the day, we are the government. It's our civic duty. We need to stand up. And if something is going wrong and our public servant leaders are saying, hey, this isn't real, the people need to stand up and start doing investigations. Look at the work we've done as a people across this country for voter integrity, the election integrity. The movement is huge now. There's thousands of people that have exposed just all the different ways and facets that they have defrauded us at the polls. And let's be honest, both the Democrats and Republicans have called out the machines in the past. This is nothing new. Hillary Clinton believed that the election was stolen in 2016, and we said it was stolen in 2020, and it goes back and forth. So if we all think there's issues, let's enumerate those issues and let's fix the issues. And that's our job. That is we the people's job. We are the government. And so I really appreciate both of you for coming forward and also doing what you do, because without you, and as I've told others, I'm throwing my name in the ring for state rep in the next election cycle, because it's time for me to walk the talk and just stop, talking the talk. I've done this for 10 years.
Well, give me a call. I can give you a class on what to do.
I'm going to need it. I'm down here in Martin County, so I'm going to need it. Definitely going to need it. So anyhow, it is great to spend some time with you. I'm going to let you all go. If you have any updates, just send them to me, and we'll be sure to get them out on social media, keep everybody informed.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you both.
Bye-bye.
Incredible. I mean, this is what it takes, folks. This is really what it takes. If you want to be a part of the sausage making, if you want to get your hands dirty and you want to get in the system, you got to stand up when the system fails you, and you've got to call the system out, and you've got to go to the people that are supposed to be supporting the system, whether it's your local community constituents or it's the Republican Party as a whole. If we're talking about just the Republicans, this goes for you too, Democrats, although I doubt there's very few Democrats paying attention to this broadcast. But that being said, this is a we the people thing. And a lot of these issues that we're being challenged with at the local level, they're not even partisan. It comes down to, do you want, toxic waste in your backyard? Do you want an AI data center with tonal noise that you can't even hear, that's really being detrimental to not only you and your emotional state, but your livestock in the area? Do you want your water supplies being drained? Do you want your water supplies being poisoned? I mean, there's just basic stuff that is, as a public servant, you got to look at the county traffic flows, the developments that developers are trying to come in and grease the skids. That would be you, the local county commissioners. Are they people taking bribes? I mean, this is the kind of stuff that it should be on a referendum at all times, that if a developer wants to come in and buy some land and rezone it and turn it into, 1,000 homes, the people in the area need to know how that's going to impact their utilities, their water supplies, their services, and their home values. And that should be a referendum. We shouldn't just be able to just willy-nilly just, cut up areas. I don't believe it anyway, because I've watched too many areas like it's super, south of me in South Florida. It is just wall-to-wall concrete and gated communities down there. And it's just crawling with people. It's nuts. I don't want to be around that, but God bless the people that do. It just is what it is. There's something for everybody. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we have Dr. Ariyana Love on deck. We're going to be talking about concerns that are emerging and potentially life-threatening conditions known as alpha-gal syndrome. And I'll give you a little sneak preview. The alpha-gal syndrome is an allergic condition associated with tick bites. People suffering from it may experience serious reactions after consuming red meat or dairy, gelatin, or any other products that come from the mammalian animal chain, like, cows and anything that where animals are born and they nurse off their mother. That's a mammal, okay? So we've got some recent CDC research that found that alpha-gal antibodies in 24% of the sample blood donors across high-5 prevalent states doesn't necessarily mean that 24% of the population has come out with the clinical syndrome, but it does demonstrate that there's a significant level of exposure and the need for better public awareness. So my next guest believes that public discussion has to go a lot further. Dr. Ariyana Love is the founder of the International Association of Naturopathy and Terrain Restoration Institute Foundation, and she describes herself as a second-generation holistic doctor, medical journalist, and terrain-based medicine researcher with more than 18 years of experience in natural healing, along with a decade of experience in corporate finance. So stick around. I'll be right back with Dr. Ariyana Love after this quick commercial break.
Food security or food sovereignty. Every time we buy food, we choose. Glyphosate exposure is exploding, and people are asking, why is food so expensive? This is why we do what we do. Organic fields, thriving orchards, the purest ingredients straight from the earth. From our farms to your family, we do the testing so you don't have to. You save time, you save money, and our regenerative farms continue to grow. It's time to remove what does not belong, rebuild with cleaner inputs. Support the farmers with the future in mind. This isn't a trend, it's a shift. We still have a voice. We still have a choice to vote with our dollars for a healthier America today. Tap the link.
Are you ready to take your health back? At vandersteelhealth.com, I trust Purium's powerful superfoods to fuel my body with clean, plant-based nutrition. And in a world filled with toxins, Biomedic is designed to help support your body's natural detox process, even from glyphosate exposure. Real nutrition, targeted support, no junk. Go to vandersteelhealth.com and take control of your health today. And welcome back. Dr. Love, who's our next guest, is preparing an investigative report alleging connections among historical military tick research, genetically modified organisms, and radioactive materials. These are extraordinary and somewhat disputed claims that have not been established by public health authorities. And I say that tongue in cheek because I got to tell you, our public health authorities from where I'm sitting during COVID have completely let us down, but don't let me digress down that tunnel of hell. So today we're going to be asking what evidence supports the allegations that she's making, whether independent laboratories have verified the findings, what the cited patents and government documents actually establish, and what must happen before any proposed treatment can be responsibly described as an antidote. Dr. Ariyana Love, it is great to have you. I am so glad you're here because my good friend, Melinda Sherwin has asked me to have you, and she sent me your information. I said, this is fantastic. I'd like to bring the doctor on and learn more, because we are hearing the sort of the big fear porn out here again. I call it fear porn, also tongue in cheek, because COVID was a big lesson for us. While it had detrimental impacts, people did get sick. The antidote was far worse than the actual the actual sickness. The cure was worse than the disease, as they say. So welcome.
Well, thanks for having me, Anne. It's great to be here.
Yeah. So let's just, I want to just kind of throw some stuff out and some of the research I found because you sent me a plethora of stuff and I appreciate that. The CDC found that alpha gal antibodies in 24% of the sampled blood donors across 5 high prevalent states, but it did not find that 20% of the adults have alpha gal syndrome. They say, meaning the CDC says, only a small minority of antibody positive people develop the clinical syndrome. Is that an accurate statement?
I think, who knows? You know, we're being lied to at every turn, and we
Okay.
cannot trust our public health authorities.
Yeah.
And you know, there's people with these same kind of allergies in other states as well that report that to me. So who knows? But it's still a very high numbers.
All right. So let's back this up. First of all, let's define alpha-gal syndrome, and then let's talk about that certain tick-related illnesses may involve military research using engineered organisms and radioactive materials. Define alpha-gal.
So alpha-gal is a diagnosis of, it's basically an allergy to meat, an intolerance to any kind of dairy or any kind of animal products. But what it is actually, this is gonna, I mean, I don't even know where to begin. It's like, honestly, this is just mind-blowing what I found. It's astonishing. And they're putting radioisotopes into ticks. They're putting parasites into ticks. They're putting genetically modified bacteria into ticks. They are putting nano devices into ticks, into the venom. And what alpha-gal syndrome is it's a genetic deletion. So people who have alpha-gal, their GGTA1 gene has been deleted on the X chromosome in certain targeted cell groups, like in the lymphatic system, possibly the B cells, based on what I found. So they're taking out genetic codes in humans in order to induce this intolerance to meat. And it is a life-threatening intolerance. A person, you know, people have died. A person can have an anaphylactic seizure and go into shock. So the genetic deletions of this GGTA1 gene on the X chromosome is catastrophic to your health. It will reduce a person's lifespan down to between 1 to 3 years. Mm-hmm. It's reversible, but most doctors do not know how. And because the CDC and the NIH say that there's no treatment or cure, well, they say there's no treatment or cure for, okay, let me back up. So this is gain and loss of function. These ticks are biological weapons. They were developed by DARPA at the Rocky Mountain Laboratories is where they started the research. Mm-hmm. And they did, they also tested Ebola, Marburg, and COVID-19. I mean, they developed this technology at Rocky Mountain Laboratories. So that's here in the United States. That's a violation of the Chemical Weapons Convention. It's a violation of international law. And they did also in 2019, they continued to develop this weaponized ticks program under the Autonomous Therapeutics Incorporation. They made the DARPA created a team that included Australian partners and the US Navy. So there's no question that they've done this. We have the evidence, but people need to understand what they're being exposed to. Like, mm-hmm. I'm not here to try to alarm people or spread fear or panic or anything like that. It's that we are being attacked. We're under a biological attack from what appears to be our own government. Sure, a foreign government could have stolen this technology and they're now unleashing it on the American people, but it really looks like it's our own government. You know, our own government developed it. It looks like they're unleashing it on the population.
What is the goal here? When you're going to unleash this on the population, are we just in some sort of quote controlled experiment? What's the goal? I mean, do you have any more information on why?
It is definitely a live experiment. Well, I mean, they want to. a portion of the population, it will reduce the lifespan, first of all. So it's a depopulation mechanism. They want to eliminate, they don't want people eating meat. They're trying to, segue humanity into eating crickets, genetically modified crickets. And they don't want us eating meat. They're trying to eliminate the food supply. It looks like to me they're trying to scare people into going and hunting for their own food. Animals are also affected by this. They're dying horrific deaths after they're bit by the ticks. Children can be exposed. So it just looks to me like it's all actually there's more than that. It's also for control. So I need to talk about the radioisotopes. This has been a missing component to the entire COVID-19 weapon system, an operating system that's in the vaccines. So they're using a radioisotope called carbon-14 glucose. And they've been able to infuse it into the tick venom. So when it gets into your body, if you're exposed to any kind of radionuclide, it's going to replicate throughout your body. It's going to penetrate. It's going to run its course and penetrate throughout your organs and your tissue and your brain. It's going to get everywhere. Damages the nervous system. So it just keeps running its course. And the CDC and the NIH say that there's no treatment for this carbon-14 glucose. Now, carbon-14 is a natural radioisotope, but carbon-14 glucose is the synthetic lab-created bioweapon. And that is most definitely in the tick venom. So clients that are getting bit by ticks that come to me, they're burning. They're burning from the inside out with radiation. People are reporting, rashes, red chemical burns that are hot, and they're all over their body. And so this burning is happening on the skin. You can see it, but it's also happening internally. And it's hard. It was difficult to stop it in the beginning. I didn't understand the radiation part. So I just kept researching until I finally figured out how to help people. So what they're doing is they're attaching the fluorescent proteins to this carbon-14 glucose, putting it into a DARPA hydrogel, and that replicates through the body. It penetrates the tissues and organs. It penetrates into the cells, and it's actually transfected or genetically modified using CRISPR-Cas9 into the genome.
This sounds very familiar to COVID, how they were able to rearrange DNA, use it. Everything you're talking about, it sort of seems like a wash, rinse, repeat. Am I somewhat on the right track there?
Yeah. Well, it absolutely is. This is actually the missing piece. So I mean, I've literally broken news about COVID-19 technology from the beginning. The parasites, the mRNA, that they're the mRNA carriers. They carry the genetic material that they want transfected into people's genome. That's what the parasites are for. That's in the sequence ID #1. And they're using that in the COVID-19 vaccines as well. And it is also the test that's used to test for Lyme's disease. There's two of them. One test for the sequence ID #1 parasites, these loss of function, genetically modified parasites. And then the second test for Lyme's is they're testing for the Borrelia bacteria, which is a genetically modified gain of function, meaning it's lab enhanced to be more lethal and resistant to any antibiotics or pharmaceutical treatments. So that is Lyme's disease. The two tests are testing for bioweapons. And I did include that in my report. Yeah. So we've got the parasites. We've got this Borrelia bacterium that is part of Lyme's and is also in these weaponized ticks. Then we have this carbon-14 glucose radioisotope and nano devices that basically use CRISPR to genetically modify the genome. And that carbon-14 glucose is actually in something called the L-hydrogel, and that is in pretty much all vaccines. So there are no vaccines. There aren't any, as far as like the traditional meaning of a vaccine. It doesn't exist. They don't exist anymore. They've switched everything out. So all vaccines are basically containing mRNA parasites and this weapon system. And this is the same type of weapon system. I mean, they do different things with the ticks, but yeah, the radioisotopes are in COVID-19 vaccines, which explains why people would get these rashes and burn. And that was like kind of the missing piece. So I broke the news about the parasites, the bacteria, the graphene oxide. I was instrumental in writing about that initially, and now these radioisotopes. But it's important to understand this, because if you are, a doctor and you're trying to help your patients or your clients, you need to know what you're treating. You need to know what the remedy is. And there is an antidote to all of this. I had a conversation with Dr. Robert Young, who is, it's Masterpiece. Mm-hmm. Dr. Robert Young, he's incarcerated. He's being show trialed, right? They went after him because he's a big threat. And anyway, he told me that they have not published this yet, Masterpiece, but he's done the lab analysis on Masterpiece, and it does remove strontium and cesium-134 and 137, the radioisotopes.
Sure.
Yes. He was 100% confident that this will work as an antidote against the carbon-14 glucose. So that was a big relief, but people need to take a higher dose. So you need 15 drops 3 times a day. Everybody else should
be taking. How long? Yeah.
That's a great question, because basically what people need to understand is that this is penetrating through tissue, organ, and cells. And it acts like a forever chemical. So it's not something you can just detox overnight. You can just take this for 1 week and you'll be better. You need to detox for a good long time. It takes about 3-4 months to set your health. To get, first of all, we're not just dealing with radioisotopes and this fluorescent proteins and this, genetic modification. You're dealing with parasites, genetically modified parasites, the most deadly kind, in the sequence ID number 1, which is owned by Bill and Melinda Gates Pirbright Institute. That's in all COVID-19 vaccines. It's in the ticks. And so you're going to be getting, and they can be putting all kinds. I mean, ticks naturally can put parasites and bacteria into your body and make people sick with these pathogens, but they've weaponized it. So you're detoxing a weapon system. And we have to understand that people should not be just focused in on one thing. It's a weapon. Yeah.
So let me ask you about glutathione, because I've always been a big fan of glutathione. Talk to me about the role of it, as you've detailed here in your Substack, the role of glutathione in the radiation response.
Right. Okay. So glutathione is the master antioxidant of our body. Mm-hmm. And when we turn age 26, we all lose that glutathione production. We lose the endogenous production by ourselves and the reabsorption. This is why we age. This is why we start to die. And so you have to boost that back up whenever you're poisoned, whenever you're sick. And the best ways to do that, some people take glutathione tablets, N-acetylcysteine, which is a precursor to glutathione. It helps boost, but it's a synthetic. And I don't like synthetics. I found that they just don't work. They're inferior. You got to get it from natural sources. Our cells respond better that way. And if you use the synthetic glutathione, maybe use it as an emergency first aid, but it will stop working eventually. And that's the thing. They're just not as effective. So the best natural medicine supplements for boosting glutathione is the ASEA Redox supplement. And you can drink high doses of it when you're poisoned. You can drink half a bottle, a full bottle. It flushes it out much faster. It also reverses the DNA damage and turns your genes back on. So it will help reverse this mRNA damage to your organs. Then you can also use Masterpiece. Again, you can use ASEA Redox with the Masterpiece. Masterpiece, though, is a chelator, and this particular product, they have been able to reduce the clinoptilolite zeolite to a nano size. So it can go everywhere. It can get into the cells, and it will uproot forever chemicals. They did testing on this, and it's third-party tested. It's proven. So those are two of the best supplements for countering this poison. But there's
what is the active ingredient in the ASEA Redox?
So that is redox molecules is salt. So what they've done is they've isolated redox.
What kind of salt is it? Like Celtic salt, Himalayan salt? Like where does the salt come from?
It's sea salt. It's sea plasma. I think they're using sea plasma or saline. Okay. But it's sea salt. And basically what they do is they just isolate, with a patented technology, they've isolated the molecules in salt. The molecules in salt are the same molecules produced by our cells. It's actually the innate operating system of our body. And we become deficient in that. Our operating system breaks down after age 26. We lose the glutathione, we lose the adult stem cells. So we have to boost those back up, especially when poisoned. It's like an anti-aging approach, but it works because this technology is inducing cell death and speeding up the aging and dying process. What I'm doing is reversing it. So fortifying the innate operating system of the body. You've got to tackle every single toxin that they're throwing at us. Again, think in terms of a weapon system. The mistake that a lot of experts make is they get focused in on one thing, like, okay, synthetic venoms or graphene oxide, or they ignore the graphene oxide, or they're talking about parasites, but they're not really boosting the immune system. You have to do it all because the cells of our body need certain things, and you can't cheat that.
Right. Interesting. I'm looking here at your investigation, and you're talking about that the alpha, and you put in air quotes, virus is a chimeric chikungunya. Is that chikungunya? How do you pronounce that?
Yeah. Good luck with that.
Chikungunya virus, and is a patented bioweapon. This type of information is very disturbing, and it's great that you have, antidotes that people can use to try to flush this out of their system. But I look at it at a higher level. How do we stop these monsters? This is agency government. These are for-profit entities. These are not what our founding fathers envisioned when they scribed all those beautiful words, the love letters 250 years ago to us. We've got, Defense Advanced, Research Project Administration. This is ridiculous. DARPA and the military, it's like they've just gone rogue, and they're now poisoning us. They're still spraying us in the air every day. Why should we be burdened to have to spend so much extra money to constantly deal with this when we should be going to the head of the snake? Do you have any suggestions on how we cut the head of the snake off that's actually doing this and patenting these bioweapons?
Well, that laboratory should be closed. The Rocky Mountain laboratories, they've done illegal research. We need to report it. I think everybody who has been affected or, has been bitten by a tick, or we need to report it to the what is it? The OPCW is the organization. It's in the Netherlands, and that's the agency that you report chemical warfare to. Illegal chemical warfare. So, I think we should be.
So there's nobody in our country we can report this to?
Yeah, we can report it to the FBI. There are certain agencies that. After
the report Joe Hoff put out today on the FBI and others are putting out. I've been calling him the FB lie for a decade now. So I wouldn't send the FBI anything, to be honest, unless I expect them to come lock me up. I try not to interact with them. They had 274 guys embedded at the J6 rally. I don't think they're going to help us.
Well, that's a good point. There's like 3 agencies in the United States that you report this to, but how can we trust our government when they develop this technology? They weaponize these ticks. Now they've unleashed it on the population.
Yeah.
So, you know, I do also have like a dietary protocol for people to use that, you know, when you can't eat meat or use dairy. And it's important to know, like, you've got to, people have who have been bit by ticks, you have to absolutely avoid meat and dairy products, any kind of meat, animal products. And you've also got to, especially bovine. Bovine is the one that is, you know, can cause the greatest reaction. But as far as cutting the snake off, yeah, I mean, what do we do? I think people need to first wake up and realize what is happening and not comply. Our compliance is what makes it go on. We have to be strong. You have to, you know, soul search, go inside and find your strength to not comply to this. Because they're all in, you know, they're not stopping, and they have an agenda, and I don't think they're going to win, you know, with it, but we have to.
Let me ask you this, because here in Florida, we have a candidate that's being funded by the surveillance state, big tech, the big prison state as well, Byron Donalds. And he's all in to build hyperscale data centers up and down the Florida peninsula. This technology that you're talking about, would this be also, would this work hand in glove with a surveillance state for track and trace?
Yes, absolutely. That's what it's for. So these radioisotopes are attached with fluorescent proteins, and what they do is it lights up your organs and your tissue, so you can be scanned. The carbon-14 glucose radioisotope, it actually allows for them to monitor the molecular activity of our cells. So how much spike protein is being produced, how far along are you in the cloning, genetic, you know, modification, transhumanist project. They can see all of that, and they can even monitor people. Once you're bit by the tick, they can monitor people from satellites. So this is all surveillance.
If you leave your cell phone at home because you think you're going undercover, or you put your cell phone in a dark bag, but they're still monitoring you because you've ingested this, you've been either bitten by a tick or they sprayed it in the skies. I saw an Alex Jones the other day. He was talking with his expert on there about all the stuff they're spraying in the skies, and we might as well have gotten the shots at this point. We've all ingested the same compounds, so they're able to track and trace us as it is. So these detox elements, this will reduce their ability, hopefully, from that perspective, to track and trace.
Yeah. So basically, with their technology, you get bit by a tick. You could be out in the woods, and they're still able to track you if you have the technology inside you. So now I've been doing this for the last 6 years, detoxing clients and also myself, because I've been very sensitive to the shedding. And so I found ways and methods of getting the technology out, and I've been poisoned with it, targeted, you know, a couple of times. And so I have a lot of experience, and yes, you can get it out. So I've seen my blood completely contaminated with their technology, and then after 3 months, it's completely gone. It takes 3 or 4 months to get the weapon system out of your body.
I mean, I guess, how are you? I mean, I guess you're constantly detoxing every day, 3 months to get clean, and then you still have to maintain the protocol because you're always being inundated with it from the sky, or if you take a walk in the woods, you get a tick bite, whatever. I mean, you're always going to be around this technology, so it's going to be an ongoing detox lifestyle, I'd imagine.
We have to. But the good thing is that, like, it used to be more in the beginning, it was easy to detox. Then it got more complicated. Now I've made it easy again, because I have essential oils that do about 50% of the work, because essential oils, and I have very powerful medicines like myrrh and frankincense and sandalwood. I mean, these are miracle healers. They not only detox, but they regenerate your nervous system, your brain, your bones, your organs and tissues. So, and your nerve cells in the brain, and your testes, you know, it's like it regenerates your entire body. And so what I'm doing for people is, basically, a person can take 3 supplements and there's about 10 medicines in them. So I recommend, you know, the Masterpiece, or the Masterpiece and the ASEA Redox, one or the other. You have to have the salt in every protocol. So let's say the Masterpiece, which is a proven antidote to these radioisotopes. You've got to take, if you're poisoned, you take 15 drops 3 times a day when you're really sick. If you are just doing it for maintenance, take 15 drops twice a day. And that should be enough. And you can take a C or redox with it, or you can take C plasma with it, because a little bit extra of the salt is very important for the cells. But this is one of the best chelators, probably the best chelator in the world. And then blue-green algae it is one of the best from E3 Live. It is the best immune booster. It boosts your T cell production by 40%. It triggers adult stem cell production. It's reversing aging. It's fortifying your innate operating system. It's phenomenal. And it gives you all the vitamins and minerals that your body needs. So that's for the immune rescue. The cells need that to have power. And then I have a parasite cleanse, which is it's an essential oil blend of myrrh, frankincense, geranium, pine, and clove. What it does, and I finally figured out how to do this, is it kills all parasite species, and it kills all of their life cycles simultaneously. So it's a much quicker detox, and it's regenerating your entire body system simultaneously. All the damage caused by the parasites and by the nanotechnology, it's restoring your and people are reporting this. It's phenomenal. So it also removes this biofilm, which is collecting in the mucosa. It's also, you get the biofilm from the ticks as well, from the vaccines, et cetera. And it attaches to the inner lining of your mucosa in the nasal pharyngeal cavity, in the lungs, in the intestines, and it disrupts, and it seeps poison continuously into the system. Anthrax and other E. coli and other genetically modified bacteria. It's really bad stuff. We all have it. We all have this in us, and it's coming out of everybody. So my parasite cleanse is removing it. It does so many things. So those 3 supplements is all that a person really needs at the right dosage. Sometimes people, you can target different things in the body. If people have underlying conditions, there's, I might add other things to a protocol, but that's it right there. That's anecdotal. I also have an essential oil blend specifically for people that combats radiation poisoning. And it's similar to my parasite cleanse, but it's
Would this be helpful for people who've had radiation from chemotherapy radiation during cancer treatment?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
There's lots of people out there with that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Dr. Love, this is your Substack reads like a horror novel. I hate to say it. It does. And I don't mean that disparagingly. I just mean you're putting out what our own government is doing to us. And it sounds like it's straight out of a movie. No wonder Hollywood has had just sort of they've had a limitless supply of movie plots for the last 50, 60, 70 years, because it's our own government doing it, and the CIA and Hollywood are one and the same. So why not just tell us what they're doing to us? And you put it out here on your Substack. So I'm appreciative of the fact that you've taken the time to do this. You've done the research. The links to all this, if you really want to get more information about antidotes, her masterpiece that we just reviewed here, you can go to her website, drlovesapothecary.com, and nose around, or you can follow the other links here to product, masterpiece, zeolite, etc. But just go to her website, drlovesapothecary.com. And then, of course, her Substack. Like I said, it reads like a horror novel coming out of the Hollywood. It's just unbelievable. This is our government, people. What can I tell you? We keep, hoping and putting our faith in one person. The only person I follow blindly is Jesus Christ. He's not back yet. Although at this point, I kind of wish he'd show up and start cleaning house, because this is just it's like painful to listen to this stuff. I feel like I'm reliving COVID again, Yeah. Sad to say.
Yeah. It's because people aren't taking the vaccines anymore. So they're going to, unleash these ticks and get people poisoned anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Bill Gates said he was going to reduce population with vaccines if it was effective. And since people wised up to his death shots, to the clot shot, the kill shot, the They're now just going to sprinkle us with fairy dust and mosquitoes and ticks and whatever else they can come up with. Unbelievable. Dr. Love, best place for people to follow you?
Follow me on Substack. The handle is at DR for Doctor Love Ariyana. So Love is first, and my last name is first, then my first name. At Dr. Love Ariyana, and the handle on my X account is also the same. I post geopolitical things there. And then my drlovesapothecary.com website, you can schedule a consultation. You can reach out to me through the contact form, and I'm happy to help.
Great. This is her website right here, Dr. Love's Apothecary. I think you're going to learn a lot. I hope that you might need to take a Valium before you get on that phone call. I'm not kidding. It's pretty horrifying. Oh, God. You know, it just never ends. It never ends. Dr. Love does it.
I give it to people like it is. I don't try to mince words. I know it's shocking, but people need to hear it. People need to hear it. And I have the solution. So I feel more confident, like, you know, giving the bad news with the good news.
Giving the bad news with the good news. I get it. Well, it's been a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you so much for your expertise, your time, and your awakening. And again, thank you for, really stepping up to the plate during COVID. I know this has been, a sore subject. People kind of want to put it in the rear view, but the fact of the matter is the depopulation agenda carries on. They're not done with making sure that there's less of us. They certainly don't want us to be on the welfare dole, the Social Security dole, whatever it is. They've got to figure out how to reduce the debt load. And since we are the chattel, and once you stop working and producing, you now become a debt and a weight and a burden to this very system that has monetized you for 50 years of your working life. So they've got to find a way to get rid of you. And this is it. So thank you, Dr. Love, for giving us another way yet to fight back against this beast system. Appreciate you.
My pleasure.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Like I said, I haven't talked about COVID or anything related to that in quite a long time. And just going through this again is sort of giving me like PTSD flashbacks of it all. But oh my God. Crazy. Listen, I want to review one last thing before we get off here. A good friend of mine, Brigadier General retired Blaine Holt. He's a Newsmax contributor. I was going to do this at the beginning of the show, but kind of jumped in, and I know guest time is valuable, so I didn't want to keep people waiting. But I know Blaine wouldn't mind me bringing this up now. But he wrote an article, and it got published in Newsmax. It is an opinion piece. I'm going to pull it up here. Let's just get that one shared instead. And here we go. It's called All or Nothing War, Sovereigntists versus Globalists. And when you look back at the guests we had on today, and in a microcosm at the county level, we are still, trying to fight against the sovereign people are still fighting against the globalists. And the globalists are trying to control the parties. That's the whole reason we have a two-party system, because you want to control parties. And it's a reason why the 1929 Apportionment Act passed, so that we did not increase the members of Congress more than 435. It's a lot easier to write checks from AIPAC and big oil and big pharma and big tech to 435 members versus the over 6,000 we would have if we actually had a representative form of government per our Constitution, which would be one rep for every 30,000 of us. So do the math. It's a big number, how many representatives we would have. But again, this war of the sovereigntists versus the globalists, and Blaine did what I consider to be a great job in this article. It is really a primer piece. I highly recommend you go on over to newsmax.com and look at Brigadier Blaine Holt's page. But he puts this article out today, and he says, verifiable food for thought. The 5GW war is one you cannot see, but your intuition tells you it's there. Unlike what you were taught war was, tanks, jets, bombs, bad guys, and good guys, the war your sixth sense has been calling you to examine has been with us for decades. It's quite real, very deadly, and in a world of exponential technologies, the ones we know about and those hidden, you, your family, and community are literally standing in the middle of the battlefield. Who are the belligerents? What are their motivations? Are we considering the last 1,550 years of great power competition through the right prism? He breaks down the globalists, and he says you can trace the elites, the self-named, from the fall of Rome to the Venetians, the Dutch, and eventually the British Empire, that they bragged the sun never set on. Their 1 square mile headquarters, the City of London, free of nearly all laws of the crown, represented the interests of the wealthiest families of Europe and eventually the Americas and Asia. These financialists have no allegiances except to themselves. They are the hidden hand behind wars, market collapses, human trafficking, drugs, and more. Evidence of their determination to control everything can be seen in organizations like the Fabian Society, Chatham House, Bretton Woods institutions, UN, WHO, and indeed the World Economic Forum, along with a lion's share of inordinate influence into Western governments and their security and intelligence agencies. This is what we have dubbed the deep state. Then he contrasts it with the sovereigntists. Cut from the same cloth as our founders, the sovereigntists are we the people class. They are who treasure their liberties imbued by their creator, as Thomas Jefferson had so articulately written in our now 250-year-old Declaration of Independence. That fight never ended. After 1812, the globalists simply continued the fight with their institutions, debt enslavement, central banks, Wall Street alliances, intelligence cells, organized crime, and compromised politicians. The result? Synthetic colonization. If that inner voice failed you and you need to catch up, start with the following primers and have an aspirin or a good bourbon nearby as you read. The History of the Fabian Society by Edward Pease. Operation Gladio, the unholy alliance between the Vatican, the CIA, and the Mafia by Paul Williams. The Great Reset, what Klaus Schwab won't tell you and how to save yourself from the digital dictatorship by Noah Falkenberg. Memories of MKUltra, a journey of discovery from darkness to deliverance by Bill Yarborough. And he says that in each of these works, a theme is emergent. It's a very consistent set of objectives. Create lines of effort across multiple domains that seize wealth, control, and thin populations, and leverage technology to accelerate these aims. When the Malthusians talk about depopulation or the technology oligarchs eschew your right to privacy or property, you should believe them. You will own nothing and be happy. Ida Auken, Danish politician, in the 2016 World Economic Forum essay, as United States President Donald Trump and other sovereigntists escalate the campaign to repulse the globalists, Americans need to wake up and do so quickly. On today's battlefield, we see American policies aimed at blunting a kinetic World War III and restoring law and order here at home by taking on illegal immigration, mass corruption, and the agents of the globalists, our own elites in the deep state. Anyhow, it goes on a little bit more, but I think it's worth a read. The one area of exception that I take to this is essentially, I look at what's currently happening right now with respect to the furtherance of the surveillance state, the fact that mass deportations aren't happening. And I say, well, who does the buck stop with ultimately? It does stop with President Trump. And a cue we heard was when he was campaigning and talking about, as he ran up to 2024 election, that he was excited about using biometrics at the border. And when I heard that, I got to tell you, my eyes went bing. I said, biometrics at the border, that's surveillance state, that's Palantir. And we now see how prevalent Palantir is across all agency government, which, by the way, is not of elected servants, it's unelected bureaucrats, in public-private partnerships governed by corporate bylaws and statutory law, administrative law, for their legislative democracy, because these 50 US codes apply to those agencies, not to us. And we, the people, stand on the law of the land, and the Constitution is our law of the land. So those two are not compatible. Okay, what they apply to the agencies applies to them. The Supreme Court overturned the Chevron deference, Loper Bright, which means the agencies were supposed to go back in their box, be advisory only, and yet they're still out there acting as judge, jury, and executioner. And that's just simply not what an agency is supposed to do. So when you have DARPA, when you have, military agencies and other, aspects that are creating these entities like tick-borne diseases that have been manipulated in laboratories with gain of function and all this stuff to change our DNA, they are now taking our sovereignty as a human being and destroying it. And this is what it is. This is the ultimate battle of good and evil. And we need to fully comprehend what we're up against right now, because every election matters. That's why I am so focused on Florida. And I know some people are sick of seeing my feed. It's all about Florida governor race. But if I don't take a stand for my state and get a guy that understands sovereignty, that will stand in front of a train of the surveillance state, Paul Renner, who said those exact words, I will stand in front of a train, a moving train to stop the surveillance state, then, and somebody who's also received the Stand for Health Freedom endorsement, that's a coveted endorsement here in Florida. The folks that Stand for Health Freedom have made massive inroads in our state legislature for our own sovereignty, our own body autonomy. Look at Joe Latipo, Surgeon General, who Paul Renner said yesterday, I'd be happy to have him stay on as my Surgeon General because he has put the kibosh on any mandatory vaccine for any child of any school age at all. Like, we're just not doing it here in Florida. So the fact that we've got a globalist candidate with $100 million war chest coming from globalist corporations that want to push the surveillance state, don't care about our natural resources whatsoever, as long as it furthers that agenda, we got to stand up and stand up in a big way. So that's what I'm doing. I hope that each and every one of you can, consider that. Get your governor straightened out, because during COVID and the Biden reign of terror, when our borders were wide open, not one single governor stood up and said, whoa, I'm repelling this foreign invasion, and my Constitution for the United States allows me to repel that foreign invasion under Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3, and kick these people out and send them back home. We need governors that are going to do that. That's why I support Paul Renner. So without further ado, I'm going to play us out with one last point from Paul. But this is just how important it is for me in Florida, because we've had so many people move here and the affordability issues are real. We've become a victim of our own success, as Paul Renner says. But Paul has a solution to address the affordability crisis. So take a listen, and you guys have a great one. We'll see you again real soon.
I know you're struggling with the cost of things, and many have contemplated leaving our state because it's become unaffordable. On day one as governor, my number one priority, eliminate homestead property taxes, reduce insurance rates by up to 20%, and reduce electric rates. I'm the only candidate with a plan. We will make sure that Florida is a place where you can work hard, raise a family, and retire and afford to live in our great state.